So, we've reached the end of the line. After many remarkable years, the presence of SpongeBob web games on Nick.com began to dwindle after 2017. We've been going through them all on this channel for the past year, but only a few of them remain to be looked at. But before we get to those, let's take a moment to go over a few of the games we haven't had a chance to touch on. I couldn't find accurate release dates for a lot of them over the course of this series, so in some cases, I would just slip them into shorter reviews or find comfortable places to reference them. But that wasn't the case for all of them, so let's finish them off here. The first thing I'd like to look at is the Happy Caps trilogy, made by our beloved Smashing Ideas. Now, if you try to look these games up for yourself, just bear in mind that Happy Caps is also the name of a big brand of psychedelics. But hey, these are the only gummies I ever need. So the first is Patchy's Cap Tap. This is interesting because how many SpongeBob Flash games let you play as Patchy? You place a cap somewhere behind a dotted line, then coordinate an arrow in a certain direction so Patchy will flick it. You have to land it in a hole, but the more objects you hit along the way, the higher your score will be. You also get points for tricky shots, which I'm really good at. Not bad for Patchy's one Flash game. The next is a little more complicated though. In Cap Roller, you move the mouse from side to side to keep SpongeBob balanced on a rolling cap, jumping over obstacles at the same time. If you fall, you get a cap with a character on it. The type of cap is determined by how far you made it. Your goal throughout all of these games is to collect different caps, but the collection you could once view them in is no longer accessible. Either way, this one's pretty straightforward. The last one is Peer Pressure, and it's by far the most interesting. You have to roll caps down a slide and land them in either a bucket or a treasure chest. The chests open and close, so they're trickier to land in. You can also get a lot of points by sending the caps through life preservers that normally bounce them. When you get a certain amount, you move to the next stage. This is actually a lot of fun, and I found myself oddly amused by it. Definitely something you can play if you just want to pass the time. But moving on, we have a few other ones that we didn't get to look at. A big one was Sponge Mania, which likely came out around 2015 since it had the same art style as Bikini Bottom Brawlers. This game is impressive due to its large number of playable characters. You can even play as Karen, which is extremely rare in SpongeBob games. Your goal is to reach the top of a platforming stage before any of the other characters can. You're trying to bring a gift to SpongeBob, which is an item from an episode. The backgrounds are also funny because they're random scenes from the show, meaning you can get some fairly comical visuals here. And the game is alright, but some of the enemies can be a major pain to deal with sometimes. Like this one, for instance. Gotta have at least a little bit of frustration in your SpongeBob game. And the last one, that's been unfortunately lost to time, is SpongeBob Active Pants. It came out in 2014 as part of the UK's Football Kick event. It was made as a collab with Nestle and was centered around soccer. Or football. If you entered a code from a specially marked Nestle cereal box, you could enter the game. You would then choose from one of two activities, either Seaweed Sessions or Muscle Motion. Then you would play through them to unlock video clips or a certificate. There was even a human who gave you the instructions on SpongeBob's TV. It looks like this would have been really interesting. But again, it's been lost to the ages. Anyway, now that we're done making up for lost time, let's get on with the modern SpongeBob games. In 2019, we received a big one called SpongeBob Saves the Day. It's very similar to SpongeBob's Big Adventures, or SpongeBob's Next Big Adventure, in that you control SpongeBob and go around Bikini Bottom to help your friends in a point-and-click style. It has a pretty involved story, too. SpongeBob notices that it's the best day ever, so he has to visit his friends and make sure they have the best days of their lives. Ironically, despite being the best day ever, everything is going horribly wrong for everyone. Figures. You start with Patrick and click around to find different items. Clicking on them will actually make SpongeBob say different things, sometimes even telling you what to do with them. However, for a lot of them, you need to travel to different locations to use them correctly. By getting a dirty diaper from a baby scallop, you can scare jellyfish away from their nest. Then you can use their jelly on a Krabby Patty to feed Patrick and motivate him to get his doing nothing longer than anyone else award. Then you get a cookie. Seems like a good enough reward to me. Then it's on to the Krusty Krab. Don't worry, Mrs. Puff. I look like this whenever I'm in public, too. Did I just make them fart? Anyway, Mr. Krabs needs to find a tape with a commercial for the Krusty Krab on it, but you also need to help Pearl make Krabby Patties. Clearly she's only used to making salads. To do this, you need to find your hydrodynamic spatula. You get part of it for finding Mrs. Puff's car keys, but it's missing an essential component. While searching for it, you can watch Fred get eaten by a giant Krabby Patty monster, but Plankton and Karen have Mr. Krabs' tape, and there isn't really anything we can do about that right now, so let's go to Squidward's house. We have to find his clarinet, but first we can give him Bold and Brash. Wait, what? Then why'd you paint it? But it actually goes in his art gallery where Patrick Notstar is judging his artwork. A lot of the paintings are upside down, so you have to turn them over. Apparently Squidward's clarinet is in a safe, so I'm not sure why he didn't think to look in there. He's probably the one who put it in there. But it's missing its reed. I sure hope he didn't eat it again. But you can also take this vegetable Squidward and cover it in hot sauce. That's a normal thing I do whenever I see a sculpture. But you bring it to his backyard where a rabbit is eating his garden. And hi there, Squilliam. Kinda creepy of you to be peeking into Squidward's backyard like this. But he has the reed and only drops it after you burn the bunny with the hot sauce sculpture. You then return it to Squidward, so he gives you a record with his own musical masterpieces on it. I'm sure it's worth a lot. So now let's head to Sandy's. Fleas are attacking while she's trying to show her invention off to the chimps. But let's ignore that, because we can take this shrink serum to the Krusty Krab to defeat the monster. This allows us to find the missing half of the hydrodynamic spatula. We give it to Pearl, so she stops crying and a Chum Bucket bucket helmet washes up. Then we drop it on Karen and Plankton to make them drop Mr. Krabs' tape. But to defeat the fleas, you use anchor arms to open a jar with a severed head inside. Oh, that's real nice. Then you take the flea collar off of it and give it to Sandy, which scares all the fleas away. You fix her invention and that does it. But we still have one final stage. All of your friends throw you a party to thank you for all your help, but Gary doesn't seem to be there. By playing Squidward's record and blowing the table away, we see an imprint from where Gary failed to break through the wall. Because property damage isn't a big concern of ours, we lure Gary out with the cookie and the ice cream, so he successfully smashes through the rest of the way. Then the party starts and the game ends. Now I have to say, this was really well made. There's a lot to explore, plenty of witty dialogue, and some fun obstacles to figure out the solutions to. The references to the show are also nice to see, and it really makes good use of every environment. This was a really good one. Good job, Nick.com. However, there's one aspect of this game that I've neglected to mention up until now. There's a chance you might have heard of it, but this game is actually infamous for a creepy little inclusion. See, if you were to check a few character sprite sheets, you would see an unused oddity that doesn't really look like it belongs here. This is Yummer, originally named Yum. He's a very disturbing unused model. This character has gathered quite the cult following and has helped this to become one of the most widely discussed SpongeBob web games. Now that's fascinating. But anyway, it's freaking me out, so let's move on to the next one. This is Bubble Matcher, which came out in 2020 to advertise Sponge on the Run. Aside from having a few clips from the movie, it doesn't really relate to it. It's just a match 3 game where you drag images of the characters together. Not bad, but not world-changing either. But for something completely different, here's Pick a Path, which was part of a series of similar games on Nick.com. It's a little unusual, but alright for the most part. You have to choose a path between 2 different locations, though it doesn't really matter which one. You have to move quickly and answer 20-second questions as they come up. You can either make money or lose it depending on the answer you pick. It isn't shown, but your morality is also counted. If you choose to hide evidence after committing murder or blame Squidward for a misfortune, you lose morality even though you make money, just like in real life. But if you make money, you hear Mr. Krabs say this. You can also get a medal for clicking on a red herring. Interesting detail. So yeah, you get medals, choose between money and morality, and try to win Employee of the Month. An okay game, but a very strange one. So here's a SpongeBob version of the game Word Blocks. You just find SpongeBob related terms and drag the mouse over them. Your goal is to clear all the blocks on the screen. It's really simple and kinda satisfying to figure out. Not bad. But this is gonna bring us to the home stretch. The remaining games aren't playable today, but you can still see a great deal about them online. 2020 gave us a game based on Camp Coral for what that's worth. In Schwimmen and Gewinnen, developed by Peek and Poke, you fly around and collect things, including Sugar Squeeze, a drink from the show. This was only ever released in German and taken down in 2022. But speaking of 2022, that's when Mr. Krabs' financial dashboard came out. Now this was a very complicated one. run. It was made as part of a massive promotion for InvestNet, a company that makes wealth management software. You could use it to track Mr. Krabs' money. This was part of a much bigger campaign with a ton of commercials. I gotta say, it looked extremely complicated. An interesting idea though. It was also nominated for 9 different awards for what that's worth. And hey, I guess it worked with getting their corporation to appeal to the youth. And unfortunately, the final one we're going to mention is also inaccessible today. Though it was from 2024. It came out while I was working on this series itself. Never thought we'd make it to this point. Before the 25th anniversary of SpongeBob, Bikini Bottom Fishmoji Factory came out. It was a character creator made in collaboration with Pretty Big Monster, a digital agency that works on all sorts of different cartoons. This site would come up during the Kids' Choice Awards, so it was a nice little way to celebrate 2 different occasions. But as of today, this was the final SpongeBob web game. So that means, for the time being, this series of ours has come to an end. And what a journey it has been. After going through years worth of many different web games by many different companies, we finally reached the end of the line. While there did seem to be a decline in the final years, that doesn't detract from the fact that many amazing creations came out between 1999 and now, and we should be glad we were able to experience them. For many, some of the fondest childhood memories came from playing games just like these. Looking back on them invokes a strong sense of nostalgia and an appreciation for much simpler times. While time marches on and all eras come to an end, the experiences remain, and in the long run, those are what matter most. Times can change and things you love can be taken away, but your experiences are eternal. Even the darkest times are unable to change the fact that happier times once occurred. As long as there are people who experience them, those happy times will live forever. No matter how much the world changes. We may have reached the end of this series, but I'll still keep uploading like I always do, and I do hope you'll stick around to see what other adventures we'll embark on with this channel. So for the time being, be sure to subscribe, follow the accounts in the description below, and tune in to our next installment. Thank you for joining me, and as always, I will see you in the next memory.